state your name for the minutes.
Judy Stenhouse. So, as you notice, I've been coming to regular meetings, and public delegations are right at the beginning of the meeting. And then I find other things are discussed that I'd like to give some input into, but I can't. I have to wait a month till the next meeting.
2 weeks.
Or 2 weeks. Would you guys consider having public delegations maybe twice or maybe a little later on in the meeting?
The way the meetings are run is most of the time, 98% of the time, the gallery does not participate in the meeting unless they have expertise or something that is relevant to our discussions. So an opinion would not be a relevant input to our discussions.
Okay.
Okay, so, but it's certainly something that we could discuss amongst ourselves, because it's up to us where we put the public delegation, and if you want input whether or not the rest of council feels that would be appropriate or whatever. But again, the election process is such that we are the ones that are supposed to investigate, formulate our opinion, and then discuss it amongst ourselves without input from other people at the meeting at this time.
Okay. Like, I do understand where it's at. It's important because if people have something to say, they come in, they say it, and then they can go about their business. But, yeah. I was just trying to be more interactive in this.
And are you a resident of the town?
I am.
Well, then we will look forward to you in October.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
Councillor Gilroy, just before you leave.
Just to your point, one other possibility is that we have an awesome administration that has these booklets ready ahead of time, and you can actually come in early and pick up an extra one. As of Monday,
by
usually.
Friday for sure.
Friday. I look through it. If there's anything you find very compelling that you'd like to speak on, all of us can be contacted ahead of time, or if it's later on and we have a break, you can talk to us. But your voice can be heard quite easily if you'd like it too.
Okay.
That way, right in the appropriate timing too.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Are they interesting meetings?
Actually, they are.
And you know that they're on YouTube also?
Under comedy.
No, they're on our website. And are we up to date?
Not quite.
Not quite up to date, but we try to get them on within a week.
Yeah, I'm having some issues right now.
So, okay, thank you. Are there any other public delegations? No other public delegations? Seeing none, then we'll move on to the minutes of the May 23rd regular meeting. Could I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented? Yes, you have something?
There's an error in the minutes.
Okay.
On page 4, we have to strike Fire Chief Ken Melnick and Peace Officer Alan Bloom as present. They were absent, and we added them twice in the minutes. So if we could have them approved as amended.
Yep. All right, so could I have a motion to approve as amended? Are there any other errors and omissions that anyone has found? Councillor Quartley has made the motion to accept it as amended. All in favor? The motion is carried. Next item is the May 24th. Councillor Long.
Move to accept the minutes as presented.
Councillor Long, are there any errors or omissions on the May 24th that you'd like to bring to our attention? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. Treasurer's report. Would you like to come forward to speak to the Treasurer's report? Could I have a motion for the Treasurer's report? Councillor Gilroy.
Okay. I move that Council receive the May 2017 Treasurer's Report as presented for information.
And is there anything you'd like to draw to our attention on this report?
Nothing specific. It's been a busy month as per usual. We got the tax notices out on time and everything went the way it's supposed to.
Good. Any questions? Councillor Gilroy?
Actually, I just want to know how the trade show went.
There was 180 delegates from what they call Visitor Information Booths, so VIBs, and there's another acronym that they use for the other group of people, but there was 180 people there, besides the people from the other booths, and of course the organizers. So they came through, and every single one of them pretty well came through the booth because they had to have a stamp, and without the stamps from every booth, they couldn't put their name in the draw. And I had my blurb down pretty fast to about 4 sentences and telling people about the High Prairie. A lot of them were from southern Alberta or even southeastern BC. There was even quite a few from there. A lot of them were sending people up through Valley View Way to go up north, to go to the territories or to Alaska. A lot of them didn't know that coming from Edmonton to basically to Peace River, whether they go Slave Lake route, Swan Hills route, or Valley View route, there was only a few miles difference. And so they had another opportunity to see the countryside, so I pointed that out to them, and a lot of them were going to start in the visitor information booths pointing that out to people, that they had a choice of 3 options.
The trade show itself, what was the name of the trade show?
A long name. I can pull it out for you, but it was a very, very long name because it's not a normal type of thing. They do it just for the people that are there at the conference, for the visitor information booth, museums and stuff. And it's organized by Alberta Recreation and Parks in conjunction with, I think it was Alberta Tourism or something. But the name they have for this trade show is quite a long name. It's not a one that you can just snap off the tip of your tongue type of thing. But they have invited me to come back again next year.
So it's specifically designed for visitor information staff?
Correct.
Okay.
So it's very good promotion to tell them about other parts of the province. And so I gave out a lot of brochures on Peace River, on the Peace River area, but on High Prairie, the map that we have for the town of High Prairie, the brochure we had, and of course the magazine that we got from the Northern Route. And I did the stamps on them, and there was a few of them that also got a card from me because they wanted to get more information in future. I picked up 2 or 3 of the fish hooks and a bunch of the pins, and I gave a few of those out also to some of the people. But it was very interesting. My evaluation, when they asked for the evaluation afterwards, I suggested they have it for a little bit longer than just one afternoon, because people coming from that far away to go out there just for one afternoon, it's a long drive for such a short time period. So whether they'll extend it or not, I don't know.
Was there anybody there from the museum?
Well, Darlene was part of the course,
Okay.
right? So she wasn't part of the booths type of thing, but she came through.
Oh, so it was a course and
Well, they had training for 2 days for the people that were, for the visitor information booths and for the people that were with the museums. So they had 2 days of training of some sort. It was like a conference for them. So this is the trade show part.
oh, okay.
And so if they have a bigger facility, then they'll have people both from the visitor information booth doing one participating and one doing the booth. For smaller places, they didn't have somebody to take care of the booth. But the Nampa was there, Peace River was there, Fairview was there, Slave Lake was there. Don't think there was anybody from Smoky, but the general Peace area was well represented. So
All right.
it was interesting.
Yeah, yeah. It was well worth it then. Mr. Martins?
We had invited Big Lakes County to take part, but they opted out, so, but we opened the invitation for them to join us in our booth, so.
Good. Okay. Well, maybe next year they'll participate. Any other questions regarding the treasurer's report? Councillor Panasic?
I was just wondering, I see you wrote the newspaper ads for the assessment open house.
Yes.
I'm just wondering when that is.
It's on next Tuesday, the 20th of May, from 3:30,
20th
I believe, sorry, June, from 3:30 till 6:30, I believe, or 3 to 6:30, I can't remember. It was we made sure to cover the times that people are coming off work and would have time to still come in. And so then he can go for supper afterwards. There's been a lot of people asking questions. We may have a lot more people coming, and if that's the case, he'll be able to speak to people in general rather than each specific person with their particular tax notice. But he's going to be explaining assessment in general. I'm hoping that the newsletters that have gone out with different information on the tax notices about the levies. I gave you guys a copy. The newsletter will be out tomorrow with the utility bills, and the backside will have that. There's also the assessment little blurb that I gave in the last newsletter. So I'm hoping people are starting to understand a little bit more. But it'll be open for questions for them for 3 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions regarding the treasurer's report? Okay. All in favor of receiving for information? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Next item is the donation request to Aboriginal Days. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Danaka?
I make a motion that council approve the High Prairie Native Friendship Centre request for funding in the amount of $500 for Aboriginal Day.
Any discussion on this matter? Councillor Gilroy?
Actually, I agree with Councillor Janak. I was going to say the same thing because when I looked at their funding, I noticed that the potential funding they were looking at, County of Big Lakes was only looking at 500 as well. And to be honest, most of or a good portion of the people who were part of the Friendship Center are technically in the county. And so for us to pay twice as much as the county when we're smaller tax base that is, and that I want sort of the level playing field there. So I was going to agree with $500 on that.
Okay. We also give in kind because our staff is the ones that set up the barricades and take them down again. So there's a cost there that is borne by us.
Can we then, in our letter back to them, show that we are with the in-kind and with, if this goes through, the amount of financial, show that we are meeting a greater need for them?
Can we do a calculation, a rough calculation, and include that in your letter? Okay. Is there any other comments regarding this? Now, one of the things that I notice is we don't have, when we get these requests, I would actually really like to have a list of where we are in the grant process and how much money we have left. So
you would request that at every meeting instead of just once a month?
when we get a request, we need to know how
Okay.
much money have we got. And
Okay.
if we don't have any requests at the meeting, we don't need the breakdown.
Yeah, but you do get it once a month already in your financial report, so.
I don't know if we bring it with us.
It's basically a one line within the discussion, that there is so much money left in that account. So council knows, so.
You don't want a breakdown of all that's been spent so far? Oh, okay, well, that'd be easy then, yes. Oh, that's easy then, okay.
Okay, so I need the starting budget, how much has been spent, this is much remaining. Okay, good, thank you very much.
And happy anniversary.
Oh, yes, isn't that the truth? You saw that stuff. I thought you were blind.
It's yellow.
Oh, it's in yellow. It's highlighted. All in favor of the $500? That motion is carried.
And I'm looking in the right direction.
Yeah, that's right. Next item is the High Prairie Golf Club Letter of Comfort. Councillor Panasic?
I move that council give second reading to bylaw 07-2017, line of credit loan guarantee for the High Prairie and District Golf Club, this the 13th day of June 2017.
All right, and we have had none response, so obviously our ratepayers are okay with this. All in favor of this motion? That's carried. Next, Councillor Long.
And that council give third reading to bylaw 07-2017. Line of credit loan guarantee for the High Prairie District Golf Club this 13th day of June 2017. I have it blowing up here. You think I did it there instead?
All in favor? The motion is carried. Library tents. Next item of business, could I get a motion? Councillor Danaka?
The council received the request of funding of $2,500 from the sesquicentennial budget to aid the library board in the purchase of canopies for information. And at our library meeting, as you'll see in my report, due to somewhat of the confusion that was happening there, the library board instructed Tracy to just go ahead and purchase 6 tents and get it done.
So it'll come out of the library budget?
Yes, it will come out of the capital, so there's no need for the sesquicentennial to be giving them money because they've already gone and purchased them. So.
Okay. Councillor Gilroy?
I was going to say that, see, I didn't see this as a legacy project, but if they would have been allowed to move some of the legacy money over to the operating fund, I might have been in favor of the tents. But I don't see it as a legacy project. As I was saying before the meeting, what they've done to the park, McIntyre Park, is a legacy because it will last for years and years and years and years. Tents, I don't see as legacy projects. But could have been an operating one, possibly.
All right, so it's for information. Any other comments? Any other questions? All in favor? That item is carried. Next item is Windwood Ministries. Could I get a motion on this? Now, this is the one, oh no, I was gonna say it's out of order, but it isn't out of order, is it? No, that's further on. Councillor Tanaka?
I make a motion that council receive the request from Windward Ministries to waive the property taxes at 4701 51st Avenue for information only.
All right, can you tell us before we start, how much are the property taxes for the 2017 year? Municipal portion only.
I would have to pull the tax notice to find out. I can't remember how much it was at all.
Is anyone else interested in knowing how much it is before we start this conversation? Councillor Tanaka?
I don't really think that that matters
Okay.
at this point in the sense of what has been presented to us in the agenda is that basically that says as of February 2017, Windward has been registered as a business entity, but not as a religious organization, nor as a charity, and nor as a nonprofit. So, I mean, to waive their taxes, we can't.
Okay. Councillor Gilroy?
Actually, I was just going to, Councillor Tanaka sort of stole my thunder a little bit there. I was going to ask our treasurer to just put it in black and white for everyone, exactly what her thoughts on why we should, how they stand and what she could have done. It's a very, about 2 minutes at most that you were going to do, that I asked you to do.
All
Yes,
right.
you asked me to do.
Well, before we start with your rationale, this is a ministry, I believe. Does it hold regular congregational meetings?
Yes, it does.
It does. All right then. And I'm showing my Christian background. And do they meet on Sundays?
Yes, they do.
All right then. Okay, you go ahead with your presentation as to what your rationale is on this Windwood Ministries.
My problem was that I had asked for the proper documentation stating that they were a religious organization so I could go forward and present them as a religious entity. The information I was presented at the time back last fall was that, and I was just shown that information, I don't have a copy of it, was that they were registered as a nonprofit in BC, but not in Alberta. So I asked him to get the proper documentation and bring it back to us. From the time that council had said no the first time in August to when he came back in November, the information was sent to them both by myself and by the assessor for the documents for them to complete for exemption for either the religious or the Copter exemption. The difference between the two is religious exemption is for a church, and they usually have documentation either from Canada Revenue or something like that. In regards to the Copter regulation and the exemption for that, that's for nonprofits and for charities. those can get registered in the province. It doesn't matter as much for Canada Revenue, but they get registered in the province as a nonprofit. Either one of those would have been applicable. But I didn't get anything from them until February, after February, when they were registered in Alberta under a business corporation. A business corporation is totally different than any of the others and does not qualify for an exemption, which is the rationale that I used. If we got proper documentation, then there's no problem.
So my question would be to them, and they're not here, why did they choose to register as a business organization and not a religious society?
In terms of the information I got from Municipal Affairs before I got their written reply, he stated that he assumed, we don't know for sure, that they would have probably tried to go under the religious or the nonprofit, but they didn't qualify, which is why they had to register under the business. It was the only reason that he could think of, but whether that is the case or not, we don't know for sure.
We really don't know. He could have just checked the box that said business and not checked the box that said charity, or because I don't even remember what it looks like, this society application. So for all intents and purposes, there might be a mistake on that, but he is registered as a business. My thought on this is that we have given exemptions to other organizations until they get a copter. And I'm thinking specifically of was it Marigold that they said? No, Children's Resource Council. Go and get a copter and we will exempt you for 1 year, but that's it. We are not doing it again. And I am almost of the point on this one because it has been such a hassle, and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking this is some kind of a religious organization. I would be inclined to go with giving him the exemption only for 2017 and say apply for copter, and if you don't qualify for that, then obviously you don't qualify for us either. So that would be my thought on it, because it is a religious organization that we know is meeting regularly and performing a religious function to their congregation. Is there any other thoughts on this? Councillor Danaka.
My concern with that is, being that they're a business entity, and in my mind, as they're a business. So if we exempt them, saying, okay, even though you're a business, we're exempting you for a year, what's going to stop other businesses from coming forward saying, well, he's a business, I'm a business, I want exemption?
Councillor Long?
And as we pointed out earlier, the information that we have that's presented to us is what we have. And what we have is a business asking to be treated like a religious organization. And as well, and as much as I respect Mr. Hicks, at the end of the day, what we have is a corporation that is asking for this. Yes, they may be a ministry, but for whatever reason they don't qualify in the province of Alberta. Why would we then, as a town, recognize their status that the province doesn't recognize? So they got to get their paperwork in order first, and they got to get their ducks in a row, and then come back and we'll say absolutely. But we can't set the precedence of giving a business a tax exemption based on an assumption.
Anyone other? Councillor Gilroy?
I guess what I would have liked to have seen is a copy of their application for a religious organization, something that said it was even in process. There's nothing that we've received so far that has said they've even, no offense, applied for it, if we're going strictly with the information we've been given over the past, how many months? That's a lot of months. If you are a charitable organization, like for example our church, we have to make sure our charitable status is done by the end of June, and those papers are into CRA, and they're very strict about it. They will slap your wrist and even threaten to take away your charitable status if it's not in at a certain time. So there has to be some sort of documentation trail that says that they've at least applied to the government or something. I mean, I'd be in favor of saying, okay, on presentation of the fact that you do have a religious exemption, you know, you could have the exemption. But there's nothing here that has said that they're in the process of doing it, they've applied for it, and I just have to go with the paperwork that we're given, unfortunately. And trust me, as a minister, I want I want to protect all the churches, but I can't protect them if there's no evidence that I've seen right here.
Okay. Councillor Corley?
If they have all their paperwork in order or about to be in order, then they should be able to get their copter, correct? But if they don't have it and they just don't get it.
They won't get the copter for 2017 because they're too late.
Yeah.
So it has to be for 2018.
So I'm on the same frame of mind as you. Is we'll let one slide, but if they don't have copter, if they can't reach that point, then they're nil and void in my mind. That's I think they got to get their paperwork in order if they want exemption.
Councillor Panasic, do you have anything to add?
Well, we had a comment up there that she wants.
Did you want to go first?
Doesn't matter.
Go ahead.
Two things. First of all, both the assessor and the municipal affairs, as per the last line in the email, state that the onus is on them to provide us with the information. It's not us to go running after them. They are supposed to provide the information to us. The onus is on them. The second point I was going to make, if you give it to them effective for 2017, then other businesses could still do the same thing. What I would recommend, if that is the route the council wishes to do, is that they have to pay it. And if they have their documentation in order by the end of the year, then they get the refund at the end of the year, but not at the beginning of the year when you don't know. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, that does make a lot more sense, because right now, we don't know if they're gonna get that designation or that exemption through copter. So to exempt them, we don't really have any reason to exempt them that we can prove and document. I'd be more inclined to say we'll charge them now, but if they get it before the end of the year, then we can refund them their money.
When would they know with the copter for 2018?
They have to send the paperwork in for the exemption to the assessor by September 30th for the 2018 year. It's already passed for this year. However, that has nothing to do with whether they fill out the information for copter. They have to provide information that they are a nonprofit or a charity to the assessor with the application. So unless they have that, and I don't know how long that takes.
Okay.
That's the provinces for registries.
So the province decides. Okay. Councillor Long?
And this is my last on this one, but if we go down to the cost and source of funding, if applicable, that's probably the most important part of this discussion, is that because we already have a budget, we've already gone through the process, and then all of a sudden we take a chunk of revenue out of that budget, we're putting that responsibility onto the taxpayers. And if we're telling them, if that's going to impact our mill rate, and it impacts our ratepayers, it's a fair process. They get it next year. If they apply and they get all the paperwork in order, then I would be in favor of 2018. 2017, you had lots of time, right? They had lots of time to get their documentation in order. And I'm not going to throw it onto the taxpayers to cover up their tardiness.
Councillor Tanaka?
Going back to the email from Municipal Affairs, that the onus is on the organization that is requesting the exemption. When we went through this in 2016, did we not request since they were going for this and whatever, did we not discuss Copter with them to apply then?
I discussed it with Pastor Hicks more than once and positively at length in November. And I gave him the application back in October. And I do have a copy of the email that was sent to him and sent to him by the assessor also in October or September before the deadline.
So, based on that, they've been advised to do Copter from last year. We're telling them again to, basically you're reiterating what you said in 2016 when they were requesting the waiver. We're dealing with this in 2017, and it appears that nothing has changed other than we now know that they're registered in Alberta as a business. So I go back to my motion that, I mean, they've been given ample time to get the proper paperwork that they require in order to be able to partake of the waiving of their taxes. So I don't know how much longer we're going to carry on. We've told them what's required, and they still haven't produced it, and it's their onus to produce it, and I don't think that we can waive their taxes.
Okay, I think everybody has put in their opinion. I only have one other comment before I call the vote, and that is, I'm certainly sure if the gentleman had handwritten his letter and it was sincere, that we would have agreed to it. So.
I have one more thing.
My question is, how are they able to, without all this status, give receipts, charitable receipts? See, that's what I'm saying. If they're a church and they're giving receipts, there has to be some authority to do so. And I'm not asking to be audited, okay? I'm just saying that, so they should have had some documentation to present us with.
Okay.
Even if it was a handwritten note.
Showing sincerity.
Showing sincerity, yes.
All right, so we have it for information. All in favor of receiving for information? That motion is carried. Go back and explain again, administration, to that we lacked enough information to move on this for 2017. Pardon?
I think we should make it fair and just tax all the churches.
Well, I know, we're moving towards that.
July 1st, we will have a sign in front of our church, parking fees there, so that all those going to the party in the park, we'll make enough taxes on that day to be able to pay for all the church's taxes for the year probably.
I'm glad you're in agreement.
Yeah, there you are.
And those that hadn't even made up, Arlen will donate the rest of the money.
We will be like Rogers Place and just have all those driveways and everybody charging to park there for the event. All right, next item is the MMSA service cost. Could I have a motion on the, this is the page 39 goes on to page 41. So ignore page 40 at this point. Just, it's 39 and 41. So we have the requests that we asked for as to, for the 2-year contract, what are we expecting to do in the next 2 years that would add up to, how much, 200,000? And this is what they have come back with and said, this is the 200,000 contract gets us $224,000 worth of work. So we get a break of 25,000. Could I get a motion as to how you would like to proceed? Councillor Panasic?
I'm going to say that council enter into a further 2-year contract with Mackenzie Municipal Services effective January 1st, 2018.
Okay, any questions on this? Councillor Long?
Through the chair to the CAO. you think we get our good bang for our buck out of this organization?
I believe we do. And what they are probably gonna offer us in the next year with, what was the name of the board that they were talking about? Subdivision and review board, appeal board. Which, if each individual municipality had to fund on their own, would be big time dollars on top of this. So what they're planning to do is to do a regional one for all the partners that are part of MMSA. So that above that is going to be a benefit to the municipality.
So the appeal board is made up of how many councillors would have to sit on that?
I don't think it's councillors. It's
No, just people.
It's just people with, but you need I think it's a 2 or 3 day course that you have to take, and you have to pass it.
And then you need refresher. And the county just sent 2 of their people or 3 people out for a refresher. So it's an ongoing cost that we would not have to bear. We would get it through our membership. Any other questions? Councillor Gilroy?
As much as this is, you've given us some suggestions here from Havan, we're not limited to these projects, are we?
No, we're
We
not.
can actually go beyond the 224,000, can we not?
Yes, we can.
And I believe that they also said that if, depending on how many organizations, if they get their quota, because they're not going to go that much bigger than they are now, we may even get a discount back, a rebate back on this. Not a large one, but it may be so something to consider.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Panasic?
Yeah, I know, I was just curious about which projects, we really wanted to have done, and that's part of, and I can see special planning projects. I'm not sure what that means, but as they come up, they're gonna do something for us, right?
Definitely.
Open spaces, parks planning, like we've talked a lot about, doing something else with JC Park, and so maybe we can, that's the project, so that would be great. And
Possibly the hospital land.
And possibly the hospital land, and GIS and web mapping services, 42,000 a year. What is that really going to, for 2 years? Like, that's a big chunk of change. Do you know what we're getting for sure? Like, I missed that one meeting, but I know that we've got something, it's not available to the public yet. They're gonna do some more mapping of the infrastructure under the ground and that kind of stuff. But that's still, after that, that's gonna be, those are a big cost to get that all digitized and put in. But after that, the maintenance of that is not very high, so I wouldn't expect that.
I'm not sure about the GSS, the web mapping, and you're right, that seems like a large chunk for the second year. But I do know the special planning project, part of that was downtown revitalization, because that was one of our priorities. So we were looking at and actually trying to get a strategic plan for going forward on that. The GIS and web mapping, I know the taxes were a large portion of that, and there was a lot of entry work for that, so that they didn't have to keep going back into paper files, and they could call it up, and the public could call up their own property, and they could look to see some of the items attached to that, as in the lot block and plan, the assessment of it. There was something on the what the assessment was based on. So there was information on your property there. Councillor Gilroy?
Just maybe this might help as well. I know that already our development clerk is using it, and a few others. What would be the actual approximate time saving, which turns into dollars for us, from the staff? Because I know it affects Public Works, it affects our admin. Would we receive significant savings in time, staff time, that would allow us to be more efficient and sort of save the money that way?
And you would have to ask the administration on
you'd be saving some money, because I know, like for Vern's guys in the utilities, they generally use mapping every day, so to go into the computer and find out size of lines and whatever else, where they're located, would be a huge.
So there would be some financial savings from our day-to-day business work.
Yeah, I don't know how I'd give you a price on it, how much savings, but it definitely would be saving at times.
And as we move towards digitization, that is, rather than having the paper maps and unrolling it.
I know Marion today actually sent the gas utility maps, or contacted Brian Ryder to forward the information, the digital stuff to them, so they could start putting the gas lines on the mapping system, so it started already.
Councillor Panasic?
The other question I had is, I just want to make sure that if in, time we decide not to continue with Mackenzie Municipal Services, that we get all of that GIS data back. We do, okay, that would be, I don't want to pay for it and then
And
them continue to hold
At
their
that
rates.
time, in 2 years, you can go out and you can hire a general planner for, you can contract these guys or put a RFD out, or RFP in, decide on, how much service you do need as the municipality, so.
Okay, is there any other input, any other questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor of entering into the contract? That motion is carried. Next item is the history check application. So could I get a motion on this? And that is on page 40. Starts on page 40 and it continues on page 42, which is the letter. Motion? Councillor Panasic?
I'll make a donate, or that council offer financial support in the form of $1,500 and direct administration to provide a letter of support for the History Check app to aid in future grant applications.
All right, any questions, Councillor Danaka?
I see benefit in this, but at this point, I think to do the 1,500 for me is a little pricey. I would be more inclined to go with 500 and a letter of support. And then if they come back again to us next year and we see that this is flourishing and people are actually availing themselves of the app, to maybe bump up our donation at that point.
Any other comments? Councillor Gilroy?
I guess after listening to the presentation on the 24th, I was trying to think of all the different places that we have in our area that would draw people in on a history app, and I'd be more inclined to go with the lower amount until I could figure out exactly how many things that we have that would actually be on that app to really draw in the people. And I probably, if I was looking at putting it out, I'd also put it out under either some sort of advertising account or economic development, because we're trying to, that's where the funds are going to come from, as opposed to, doesn't say where the funds are coming from here.
It probably is going to come from grants, but you're right, we do have money in economic development, and this would be.
So, or even tourism, some sort, because it is a tourism app. I'm just not thinking it's one of our normal grants and sponsorships.
Any other comments? Are you interested in amending it down to 500?
I would be fine with an amendment down to $500. Yeah, I'm not. They're an organization that I think is, just getting started, but do we need to do more? I don't think they're going to go ahead anyways, I think, and we'll see how good it is. I think there's good potential there.
I agree, and I am very disappointed that Travel Alberta and Tourism Alberta are not kicking in more money on this. So, we've already given $100. The, one of the way markers is the museum here. So that one is already on, so this is a further 500. And if we have any other through the year that, any other sites, the railway mural perhaps. At this point, you're right. Most of our tourism markers would be in the county. So, I can't think of really, off the top of my head, really anything else in town. However, okay, so the motion is for $500. All in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you. And out of economic development, treasurer, not grants. Cemetery maintenance request. Oh, could I have a motion on this one? Councillor Gilroy.
So I lost the page there for a minute. I move that council approve the town to help with the repairs at Christ the King Catholic Cemetery, mainly because we've done it with the other ones. It's only fair.
The only thing I have a problem with on this is that I was at the Anglican Cemetery walking through that cemetery with their cemetery committee, and they have the same problem. The grave covers, the cement, they're just really, really old cement covers, and they're broken and they're collapsing into the actual grave. They had a conversation with Peace Country Memorial. I think it's Peace Country, but it's the people that were bringing in some of the gravestones, and they discussed with them what could they do about this, because they were thinking of lifting the covers, putting dirt under, and then putting it back. And the gentleman said, in the Peace River country, this is coming up lots, and what they have recommended is that they just collapse it down, add the dirt on top, and seed it. Because even if you raise it and put dirt under it, it's still going to collapse again. So you'd be better off to just level it off. So I agree that the town should help, but I think that before they do the lifting in that, they actually explore what's the recommended solution on this, rather than try and fix it with their idea. Like, maybe that is the way to go, but there's no writing on these grave covers. This is just a cement slab, doesn't say anything, so burying it is not going to make a difference. Mr. Martins.
When we did the repairs to the ones in the Catholic cemetery previous years, or not
town?
in the town cemetery, the McEwen, we took pictures prior to, and then we'd mark each corner with a steel spike as to when we picked the covers off that we could set them back down in the same spot. So what we did is took a picture of the cover to make sure that if it was broke or damaged or whatever, that we had picked that up, put the spikes in, picked it up, we put new dirt and sand or whatever, fill, compacted it, and then set the grave cover back on, pulled the spikes, and went on to the next one.
Is it sinking now, still out there?
No, they're not. No.
They're not sinking.
No.
Okay, then. Councillor Gilroy?
Sorry, it just reminded me of a meeting that we had at MMSA. One of the projects that's becoming quite popular with the northern municipalities is actually mapping the cemeteries. MMSA maps the cemeteries so that if there's problems like that where you're not quite sure who's buried there anymore, they will map it out as a project. So there's a lot of the ones are doing that, and that would be extra bang for the buck if we needed it.
Any other comments? Well, then, it's there to help, the town is, but do we have a cost, or do you have any idea how long will it?
When Mrs. Kastner called me, she said that there were about 10 or 12 graves that need to be repaired. So probably a day and a half to pick them, so.
Okay, so if you go a day and a half with the Catholic, I know the Anglican is gonna come.
They never did come back and ask.
You'd be surprised now if you.
No, but last
Yeah.
year we had approved last year, and I told them to get back to me
And they never did.
make arrangements, so we needed a couple days' notice, and they never did get back to us.
Okay.
Last year when the big trees fell?
In the Roman Catholic cemetery it did.
Yeah.
I remember that big tree coming down.
Because that was their biggest problem then, is getting rid of the trees.
Yeah.
That was their focus, I think.
Did we do anything with the trees?
No.
We haven't, okay. And the one out, west of town, we cut that one. And do you know if the graves are collapsing on that one also?
Some of them are thinking.
Yeah, so that'll probably be another one we're gonna be slowly, we'll be slowly helping out, because these cemetery groups are all getting to be 75, 80 years old. And the young people are not stepping up to, to work in the cemeteries. It's the older congregation. All right then, all in favor of this motion? Put it on your public affairs, your public works. I mean, you've got all the time, eh? All right, intermunicipal deliberation. Page 45. Do you want a break yet? No, okay. Could I get a motion on intermunicipal collaboration? Councillor Panasic?
Yeah, I'm taking the hits, yeah. The council approved the attendance of the CAO for the intermunicipal deliberations with East Prairie Métis Settlement.
Let's start with the CAO and see where this leads to. I do know that the East Prairie Métis Settlement has wanted an exit out of that settlement for many years, but Big Lakes County has not been supportive, in the sense that once it leaves the settlement, it's probably going to be a county road, and it's going to cost them to maintain that road. So even if the province builds it, it eventually will fall back on a cost to the county. Mr. Martinson.
I had talked to one gentleman from East Prairie, and I guess what the intention was is that they needed a fire escape, second route out. So what they had proposed was the roadway to Swan Hills, but the cheapest and easiest alternative was to build approximately 2 mile of roadway across to hit the 749 that goes south from here, which would be a lot cheaper, because I guess the terrain going from East Prairie to Swan Hills was very hilly, and
There was 3 or 4 bridges needed too, wasn't
yes, yeah, it was quite expensive. So
Councillor Panasic?
I wasn't sure by reading this that if they were looking to meet with their political leaders, or because it just came from their CAO, and that's why I thought, well, CAO to CAO, but was that the intent, do you know, or were they looking at political leader to political leader? The reason I'm asking is I think, if they wanted political people to get together, then I'm all for it, to try to open up those doors and would meet with them and see what they have to say and what they want from us. But from what I got from the letter, I wasn't sure. I just said, okay, well, if they're talking with their CEO, you can talk to them, bring it back, see what they want. So, but if
All
they
right.
want to meet political leaders, I'm for that too.
Do we want to amend the motion so that CAO, mayor, and 1 councillor if required? Or do you just want Brian to handle it now
And then bring it back, yeah, see what they want to do.
Okay. All right, all in favor? Check it out and find out what they've got in mind. Okay, integrated college, I'll make this motion. Yeah, well, this is easy. The council received the integrated college discussion items for information. So this is just to bring you up to date on what's happening, and it stems from you all received a letter or a copy of the email. I did send it out to you once already. And it was on May the 11th, Sarah Hoffman replied to my letter asking that that she continue to work towards transferring the land to the town of High Prairie. So the fourth paragraph is what came back to us in regards to the integrated new high school college project. Since May 11th, I have been sending emails to our working group partners, Laura Polis and her superintendent, Betty Turpin and her superintendent from Holy Family, Ann Everett and President Van der Meulen, Ken Matthews and his CAO, and myself and our CAO. And that basically is the working group, to try and get together and say, okay, we've got this. What is the next steps? Because I don't want to overstep my bounds in this whole thing, because it's kind of it's dicey as to how much buy-in these working partners have got. And so what I have given you is the motion that the High Prairie School Division has gone ahead, unbeknownst to any of the working partners, and passed this motion that says that Northern Lakes College, the Northern Lakes campus, and the high school, the High Prairie School Division's high school, is going to locate on the elementary school. Now, this does impact us because I'm looking at traffic there, and the information that we got on the A&W, just that little development. What's going to happen if they attempt to go ahead and do all this planning and then find out that you guys can't put an institution like that there? The neighbors are going to be up in arms. You got, and I know this, when you just calculate it roughly in your head, you've got 50 kids that are driving, going to the high school. Those all are vehicles that are being parked there. I bet you've got 30 kids over at St. Andrews that drive, and they park. You're going to have instructors from 3 campuses at Northern Lakes College, because they're bringing them all together. You're going to have the Northern Lakes College kids, and I don't know how many of them drive. You're going to have the teachers from St. Andrews High School and the teachers from the High Prairie School Division. How many parking spaces is going to be required, and where are they going to exit?
And the buses?
And the buses. Where are they going to exit? The Sesame Street? You've got the seniors that are already complaining about the amount of traffic that goes around that corner. And then you've got that Poplar Street subdivision, and those are high-end houses, and they're backing on to this. And I don't know if they're going to be too happy about having that kind of an institutional development sitting across their fence. So, so I'm bringing this to council to see what your view is on, is this getting away from us, or what is actually happening here? Councillor Gilroy.
Well, I've actually been talking to quite a few people in town asking what they thought of the idea. One of the concerns brought up, of course, is that currently part of that school area with HPE is also a playground for the kids of the area. What's going to happen? That playground equipment would go with the school, and the question is, what would the kids do for that particular area then, for the kids playing in that area? Another is that, yes, we've had trouble from the United Church Road down with speeders and with young children that tend to not watch when they're crossing the street. I do notice it in the mornings, even with the high school and the junior high over where they are, people still zip around my area, and my area is a secondary road. It's not even one of the main roads. So there is some concern about child safety for that area. The main question I've heard is, why are they coming up to 2 or 3 different, like splitting up the way it is? It's really adding, someone's not adding anything to there, and they're wondering why they're not even considering, the school division, that is, not even considering the potential of one off the main highway.
the old hospital site.
Yes.
It becomes a timing issue, and I'm not sure. Northern Lakes College has been very adamant that they have got that money now and they want to build. And I've heard, and I'm not sure if it's true, but apparently their assistant deputy minister has been pushing them to build next year. So I don't know how fast this is going to come together, but I don't think we would be able to get the old hospital site in 1 year. My other thought is, if this is a good project, what makes it not a good project 2 years from now? So are you saying, oh, well, I'm worried that we're not going to be able to keep the money? If it's a good project, you're going to keep the money because it's going to be a good project. Like, I just, the fear mongering of saying, oh, well, we're going to lose the money and the government may not be around, and you know, it goes on and on. Well, hell may freeze over tomorrow. You never know. But I don't think that that's a good rationale to say we're scrapping our motion or our movement towards the old hospital site, especially when Sarah Hoffman has said advanced education and education is behind this project. So where are we losing out on this? Like, I mean, where are our partners wanting to discuss this? And they have not made an effort to continue the discussion. When I see a motion like this put forward, it tells me that these people have almost made up their mind, or perhaps they already have. Councillor Tanaka.
Well, actually, you kind of reiterated what I was thinking in terms of the three partners we had. They had came, I can't remember how long ago it was, where they had came and said that they were looking at this and this integrated campus. And I don't know, and that sort of was the last, the last input that we as a council received. So I don't really know where this is going. I don't know if it's beneficial to try and set something up, being that this is more the Northern Lakes College and the schools to try and get another update, another meeting, another info session to see, like, is this a definite, where are we at with this? I don't know if that's possible or feasible.
Any other comments? Councillor Panasic?
I haven't seen this motion before, but this is coming from the High Prairie School Division, and I think it's only coming from their vision of the future, not any of the other partners' vision for the future. So I think that's sort of what they're seeing as their vision. Not that I can say with certainty that I don't know what the college's vision, but to the best of my knowledge is that there is no site that has been selected. They are working on sending out a proposal to, the first one is a request for qualifications, and then they're going to put out another one once they get that one in, then do the request to have somebody in to help sort of design the building. And so the college has not committed to saying it's going at the elementary site. They're looking at all options at this time. They've got their existing lot, the hospital, all of those, I believe, are open. But I think this is short timelines in making these things happen. So we need to, I think, keep on top of and work with the partners to see where it's going and what we can do as a town to move this project forward, because I believe that this project is a good one, and if we can lobby to, as we can when, at the next with the ministers to make this thing a better reality, we need to get on that now, because I do know that, if we don't act quickly on this, we could lose that joint integrated structure. There's some talk of building it so that in designing it in such a way that if money comes from somewhere else in the future, then they can expand on. But that's now a big lot. You need a big area if that's the plan. And you have this huge lot and a fairly small facility. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense either. So you need to get a fairly good commitment that they're going to fund the other parts. Maybe not in the next year or two, but at least in the next 5 before you would go from there, which is tough. So to summarize, I think I'm having some kind of dialogue with what's happening with this project is necessary, because I'm not sure. I don't know if some of the others are sure either.
Councillor Long?
And on top of all of that, if the site is chosen and it is to be High Prairie Elementary, it's a huge lot, it's a huge area. But if we don't become part of the discussion, like you say, we'll get bypassed. And one of the best things we can do, we won't have any influence on the building. We won't have really any influence on where the building is going to be situated or access from the highway. That's going to be transportation. So what we can do, though, is really focus on line of sight. How do we want this facility to look? Do we want it to be institutionalized, big, square, or do we want trees and we want proper lighting and laneways for cars to drive in, so it's not just a big, huge black parking lot? So that we can put that into play and make sure that when it gets built, it's not an eyesore, that it is something we can be really proud of, and it won't cost them an arm and a leg, but it will cost them proper curb appeal and proper trees and shrubs and the things that are going to make that place look nicer for the residents that are around. Because if all they're looking at is a big black tarmac and a square building, that's not going to do anybody any good. So we don't want to miss the boat.
Councillor Gilroy?
Well, I agree that we need to do some lobbying, but I would love to hear from the partners the rationale on some of where they're considering. If it's the idea that, for example, a cleanup cost at the old hospital site is the main problem, well then, we as a town and the county and the rest should be lobbying the government to deal with the cleanup, because in the words of the illustrious Michael Long, get it done now before you have to pay a fortune later. And so it's cheaper for them to actually do the work now and have it all cleaned off, and and that may be the town's involvement is to help solidify that, so that the partners can focus on the important part, and that is what's going to be, what the building's going to look like, what the scenery is going to look like around it, and how they're going to make sure it's because I know they want a world-class type of organization there.
Councillor Panassa?
That brings up a good point. Have we heard anything back or more about what's happening with the old hospital site? Has AHS or the government indicated when they're going to demolish
I should have
it
printed
when
that
they're clean?
email. I did send an email. I sent you a copy. I asked them, what was the timeline for the demolition? Did they have money in the 2017 budget for it? If not, do they have money in the 2018 budget for it? What was the assessment of the land? Because I've heard $19 million tossed around, but I've seen no written anywhere where actually somebody has offered the land to an entity, but this $19 million keeps floating around in conversation. I've also heard $8 million for demolition, but again, I have not seen anything in writing, and that number is out in the community. So those are the 3 questions that I sent an email to Alberta Health Services, and I asked for a reply by June 15th, but I don't know if I'm going to get it. That was last Monday, he put it as an action request. When action requests go forward, they are sent out, they're numbered, and they are supposed to be within something like 48 or they're action requests are from the ministers are supposed to be dealt with immediately. I don't know if this government adheres to that protocol, because I've seen action requests where you write a letter, and you'll notice on this one it says AR, that's action request. So, but this letter didn't come, this was about 3 months, 4 months. So, I mean, that was a long time to get a reply. And the only reason I got this reply was the very next day, May 12th, was the opening of the hospital. And she knew I was going to ask, where's my answer? So she got it to me. But, you know, it was, so I have followed up on that portion of it to get some more information, because that is the key point that Northern Lakes College is pushing on, is we are, we want to use that money and we want to build immediately. And we're worried that that money is going to be taken back. Which brings me back to, if the project is good enough and has got the support of your ministers, you may not, like, I do not see it being taken back, because it's, I don't know, I just don't see it. But
Changing provincial would change everything.
well, I actually don't. If it's a good project for us, it's a good project for us.
We found that out with the CAT scan,
Well,
where they lost the letter. And so the community gave money back, or gave $500,000 for the CAT scan.
the hospital was built through 2 governments. So, I mean, anyhow, so the fact is, so what are we going to do? We're receiving this for information. I think we should be writing a letter saying to the working group, we want a definite date for a meeting. Now, I know it's summer, but this, and I think it should be strongly worded. But I'm looking for input from council as to whether or not you want a strongly worded letter.
I'm thinking one of the big things would be to get an answer to what's happening with that hospital site. And if we don't get a response, set up a meeting with them to ask about those questions and to lobby to get it done as soon as possible, and to reiterate the importance of that. I think that's the first biggest push that we can make and get the biggest to help this project go ahead. I think that's where we're best pushing our money or our time to start with, and that's if we could do that. If we don't get an answer on the 15th, which in a couple of days, then move ahead to setting up a meeting with the minister.
Okay. And you're right. It'd be pretty hard to have a meeting with the partners if we don't have the information as to what's the timeline for this hospital site to be available.
Yeah.
Because that's what everybody's spinning their wheels on, is, well, how long do we have to wait? Are we waiting for 2 years? Are we waiting for 1 year? Are we waiting for 3 years?
AHS, good thing it's not surgery.
Councillor Gilroy?
I'm thinking that we just read the letter from Minister Hoffman, and it talks about how she wants more information and preliminary plans in that. Well, if we were responding and saying a good portion of the plans and the whole thing rests upon the time frame for the cleanup and the cost and those associated with it, and if we had something accurate with that, then we could get the partners probably to put together something even more substantial, because right now it's, well, as you said, the feeling of the time crunch, and if they don't have anything to say with that particular old hospital property, then they, in a sense, can't put that in as a priority because the time constraints that they're in. But if we can approach what she has told us that she wants, and by saying, well, we need a response from you as to demolition, cleanup, so that we go to the partners, at least a commitment from you, that they can then put that into their deliberations for their design. But without some sort of commitment to time frame and cost and stuff like that, that delays everything in the sense of getting the very best, in my mind, the very best possible solution for it, for traffic and stuff like that.
Okay. All right, so you're all up to date. I will move a little bit more on this. I'll wait for the 15th. Once I get some information, I'll get back to you by email. I'll send you the thing. I might draft a letter to the minister with your points, especially if I don't get a reply from the email in a timely manner, then it'll go back to another letter, formal letter back again. Okay?
And then at our next council meeting, we could make a motion to set up an appointment, right?
Yep.
And meet with them, because it's harder to say no when you're there in Toronto.
I agree.
Or to ignore you anyway.
And if we meet with Hoffman, we should also take the time to meet with Advanced Education and Education. And because those three have got to work together on this.
When are they going on summer break?
Well, we won't meet before August, so.
Well, the ministers they're not meeting in cabinet now. They broke
My question then is, if we can set up a time, I think it's very appropriate as soon as that time is set, to bring all the partners together and say, this is the exact time, the way we did when we had the Minister for Agriculture or Timber Forestry, Minister of Forestry, so that they know what's happening, and that we can then bring their concerns forward as well, so that we, as Mike would say as well, that we are part of the whole picture in a way that makes us, well, that allows us to be what we should be, a voice for the people.
All right. Motion is on the floor for information. All in favor? That motion is carried. Now we want to break.
Friendship Day, you want to do that one?
Friendship. The road closure. Councillor Long.
Council approved the road closure of 51st Street between Glamour and Gear to A1 Western Wear on Wednesday, June 21st, 2017, between the hours of 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. in order for the High Prairie Native Friendship Center to host Aboriginal Days.
Any questions? No? All in favor? That motion is carried. And I'm going to call a break.